me tell you about a friend. It's Craig LeBlanc, where the good times never end. Talking Parks and Rec, it's a show you gotta know. Welcome one and all to the Daily Parks and Rec Show. It's the Daily Parks and Rec Show.
I'm saying change your outlook in your work environment where you understand that some people think differently than what the norm is, what our typical norms are as far as the way that people think and act and carry themselves and what they do, because that's when you're going to find ideas that you never expected to find. You're going to find people that really just abandon the box thinking. The box doesn't exist for them because their brain works in a different way than you do.
Welcome back to the Daily Parks and Rec Show, the Rec Room podcast. In this episode, we're joined once again by the incredible leadership team from Henry County, Georgia. This conversation goes beyond programs and facilities. We're diving into real leadership, real challenges, and real people. Specifically, how neurodivergence shows up in the workplace, and how creating the right environment can turn different ways of thinking into powerful assets. From frontline experiences to leadership perspectives, Henry County keeps it honest, practical, and human. So whether you're a director, coordinator, or emerging leader, this episode of The Rec Room is all about understanding people, embracing differences, and building stronger parks and rec teams together. Let's dive in.
Talking.
All right, so we are live. I think we finally got a strong connection. I had to run down to the New Society, which is a workplace that I have here in St. Charles, on St. Charles Street in New Orleans. If you haven't been, it's directly across from one of our most beautiful hotels. I'm staring at it. It's the Pontchartrain Hotel. If you ever get a chance, they have a great rooftop bar if you're ever visiting New Orleans. But this is our monthly podcast called The Rec Room that we co-create with Henry County, Georgia, who's making a nationwide tour, sharing all the wisdom that they have, how to run a Parks and Rec department. And one thing I love about Henry County, Georgia is they keep it real and just kind of pull the curtain back, and you get to see how they face all the problems that every Parks and Rec department really faces and how they do such a really exemplary job of doing that. And thank y'all for being so open to sharing how the sausage is made in Parks and Rec. I really appreciate it. Let's see if the heart thing works. Did it work? Nope. I did it. Cool little feature that StreamYard offers. Okay, so we have a couple little cool things we're going to do right in the beginning. We have our first commercial that came out of our editing team specifically for a vendor that supports us. So we actually have several that we're working with, but Outdoor Link is the first one that we've made a commercial for. So we're going to play that. Please support them because they're a big supporter of the channel. And then I'll play after that how strategic partners can work with us. So we'll play those two promos, and then we'll come right back and start our conversation with Henry County.
In today's parks and recreation industry, communication, safety, and efficiency go hand in hand. That's where Outdoor Link comes in, delivering smart technology that empowers city departments and community planners to do more, smarter. Outdoor Link's platform connects and automates everything that keeps your parks running smoothly. From lighting and locks to signage, water features, Wi-Fi, and digital advertising. Control and schedule park lights for safety and energy savings. Remotely manage facility access. Update digital displays in real time. Coordinate fountains and splash pads. Provide public connectivity. And even run community or sponsorship campaigns on digital screens. All from one simple, unified platform, giving you real-time control, data, and cost efficiency. For parks and recreation agencies, that means safer spaces, smarter resource use, faster responses, and stronger community engagement. And behind every great park story is great infrastructure. That's why Outdoor Link proudly supports DPRS Media Company, helping the Daily Parks and Rec Show amplify the voices of professionals shaping our communities every day. Outdoor Link, smart, connected solutions for parks, recreation, and beyond.
All right. So, you know what? No, let me play the second one.
Are you a vendor, brand, or service provider ready to connect with the heartbeat of local communities? At DPRS Media Co., we tell the stories shaping parks and recreation across America. Through podcasts, live streams, videos, and newsletters, we reach frontline leaders, city directors, and decision makers every single week. From youth sports and facilities to programming and policy, our audience is your audience. Sponsoring or partnering with DPRS Media Co. puts your brand in front of the professionals who build, budget, and buy for their communities. Launching a new product, growing your presence in public spaces, targeting cities, counties, or departments, DPRS is your trusted media partner. Whether you're in software, turf, aquatics, robotics, smart cities, or special events, partnering with DPRS puts your brand in the story. With commercials, interviews, social campaigns, newsletters, and live shows, we're your media team. Partner with us and grow your impact in the $200 billion parks and rec industry. DPRS Media Co. Stories that move parks and rec forward. Your audience is here. Let's meet them.
All right. So, Thomas, why don't you go ahead and just launch the show and maybe define the topic for those who might not understand?
You know, I'm really happy to be talking about this, Craig, because we're going to discuss neurodivergence in the workplace, how to create that inclusive environment. We talk a lot about inclusivity, but one of the areas that we don't think about are those who think differently than we do. For example, I have ADHD. I have an underdeveloped prefrontal cortex. It affects my executive functions such as impulse control, hyperactivity, my attention span, those sort of things. And it took a lot of work to get to where I am today, to where I can focus and perform at the level I'm performing in a neurotypical world. I don't think anyone has ever used the word typical to describe me. So no one's going to be surprised that I'm neurodivergent. Thankfully, we have people who have dealt with me in this, both as somebody that has worked with me, someone that has overseen me, and somebody that I have overseen. We have all three of those perspectives today can tell you how great I am and how just wonderful I have managed to flourish in this neurotypical world despite my neurodivergence. And it's really because of the atmosphere that we create. We're here today to advocate for an atmosphere of understanding. I'm not saying that you make excuses for people. Let me clarify that first. I'm not saying make excuses for people. I'm saying change your outlook in your work environment where you understand that some people think differently than what the norm is and what our typical norms are as far as the way that people think and act and carry themselves and what they do, because that's when you're going to find ideas that you never expected to find. That's where you're going to find people that really just abandon the box thinking. The box doesn't exist for them because their brain works in a different way than you do. So your neurodivergent staff can actually be a massive asset to you if you're tapping into them and creating a workplace where they can thrive. Now, I have our deputy director here with us, my supervisor, the person that has to put up with me more than anybody, and that is Donna Holder. Hey, Donna.
Hello, Thomas. It's always a pleasure.
Yes. See, she's talking about how great I am. See, this is going to go so great for me today. I'm loving it. And then we have Katrina Wagner, our special events coordinator. Now, the thing about Katrina is she just wrote an article for NRPA magazine. We're going to talk a very small amount about that because the article won't debut until February. Don't worry. I'm going to tell you at the link where to find it. At the end, I'm going to give you the link where to find it. But Katrina just wrote an article on this subject called I Just Don't Get Her, Neurodivergence in the Workplace. And that'll debut in NRPA magazine in February. I don't think I even told Katrina that. By the way, Katrina, your article's debuting in February. Katrina, you want to say hello to everybody?
Hello, everybody. It's good to be with y'all again.
And then, of course, we have our recreation coordinator and the only person in this room that has any sort of education on this topic and will correct me whenever I say something terribly wrong during this is Dr. Zach Graham. Zach, say hello to everybody.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me on again, Craig.
All right.
Yep. Good to have you.
Now I work with Katrina and used to supervise Katrina, and I supervise Zach. So both of them are going to add some interesting perspectives about how great I am. I just want to re-emphasize that we talk about how great I am in this. I just want to re-emphasize that. No, and then just yesterday, and you and I were just talking about this, I got a message on LinkedIn that we want to do a reoccurring article every week from Henry County in your newsletter, Craig.
Yeah.
And this will be one of the topics that we start off talking with. And I haven't told Katrina this yet, but she's going to be writing that article. So surprise, Katrina.
Fantastic.
And Katrina will explain why we chose for her to write the article in just a little bit, because she has a personal story. But I'm ready to dive right in if you are, Craig.
Well, I did have a question for you. I think I might fit in that category, especially as a child. I was one of those kids that just could not sit still in a seat. I wonder if it's quite a substantial part of our population that many times just gets marginalized and pushed out because they don't operate, I guess, like many of the other students that might do well in a sit still class environment. But I've often described you as to JP as kind of like a force of nature or a cannon. You just got to point them in the right direction.
That's it.
They go from a liability to a big asset
Exactly.
when you can create that great environment.
Exactly. And it's like that all around the world when you see some of your big CEOs, your real game changers, your groundbreakers that have just come in and done something that other people have no idea how they managed to do it. A lot of those people they're not neurotypical. A lot of those people think in different ways. And so it really shows the difference behind if you're creating an environment where they're not to support that, then they can do something great. But if you're creating an environment and when they're held back and they're judged, then all you're doing is stifling what could be a huge asset for you. And I've been really fortunate here in Henry County in which they did. Of course, I worked in the prison system before this. In the prison system, everything is so fast paced that the ADHD didn't slow me down as much as it does here. That quick thinking and things like that came in real handy because of emergency situations in the prison system. But I was really worried about going to an office environment because I knew it was going to be a slower pace. I used to walk 31,000 steps a day just doing my daily job. But I knew it was going to be different here. My first day here, I think I got 2,700 steps instead of 31,000. So it was a huge difference. But this has been such a supportive environment. They haven't kicked me out yet. Michelle kicks me out of her office pretty often. But Zach, what do you on the science behind what I just said about there's a lot of people that are neurotypical, a lot of successful people are not neurotypical rather?
Yeah, so just behind it, most of like the United States population, 15-20% of people have some form of neurodivergence. With our biggest stakeholders typically are Gen Z population. So I believe like if we were to look back in history, because I mean, I've read articles and looked back, dating back to like the 1960s, but it wasn't really harped on as much going forward from there as it is now. I would believe that there are many people that have different avenues of some form of neurodivergence in them in the way they think with their executive functioning or their day-to-day lives. So looking at the science behind it, if we look at almost how people organize or do things or their mindset on how they run things or how they want to do things, you'll see different type of, or at least for my case, like when I was in school, I just taught to observe people, taught to observe how they act, how they work, and what their mindset is in completing certain tasks or doing certain things. So just looking at the science behind it, like Thomas was saying, like it is like your makeup within your brain or within your head of what's developed in that sense. And it's not always looking at it as like a neuro disorder. That's exactly what it's not. I believe I forgot the lady's last name, Judy. It's an article I read. She said that it's not a neuro disorder. It's neurodivergence in a way of your thinking and your processing within your own head.
I'm muted. Yeah, you're 100% right. Like Steve Jobs, Albert Einstein, Elon Musk, Emma Watson, Daryl Hannah, Simone Biles, Anthony Hopkins, all famous names that you've heard that are highly successful in their field, all neurodivergent. all that don't think in the same way that other people think. And we have Brian Dixon, our Deputy Administrator of Park Services, joining us. And if I've ever met anybody that is not neurotypical, it's Brian. Brian is, thank you so much for letting me do that, Brian, and not reacting badly when I did. So I am curious to start this off before we get into Katrina's article. All seriousness, if you don't mind, Craig, I would like everybody. So I am probably the most vocal person about my neurodivergence, about my ADHD. Everybody knows it's hard not to know. So I just go ahead and tell people. So I've been very vocal in our office place about it. And I'm curious, seriously, unfiltered, not talking about how great I am. What have been your experiences working with me and my neurodivergence? And what do you see with it? Donna, take it away.
So you have to recognize people's talents, and when people need a little more support, and you can kind of tell when he's reached his level of burnout that he needs a moment, and whether that's his scheduling, which he does himself and we support, but if he needs to be early morning and leave in the afternoon and then maybe come back at night because our schedules are so crazy here, then we work with Thomas in that way, and everybody else too that needs the same thing. And we just kind of let them come and go as needed as far as when they need a moment. And sometimes it can be tense around here. What you think you came to work to do that day is rarely the picture for the day. And we have to pivot all the time. And it is stressful sometimes. So we have to let people deal with that the best way they can. I have a swing outside, thanks to Brian, and I can go sit and take phone calls on the swing outside in the courtyard. So I really appreciate that when I'm having a moment, and I do have those from time to time. So it's just finding out the little things. When people seem stressed out and they don't even need to say it. You can just see that they're stressed out and they're hyper, and they need to go calm down and be in a different space, and that's okay.
And I think that's been one of the major things that have been I'm sorry, Craig, were you about to say something? I'm so sorry.
Well, I was curious if while they're giving their testimony of working with you, if there's maybe you can give an example of how a neurodivergent person would handle a specific situation that y'all have encountered that might be different than how you would have handled it.
Sure. So that's the thing about neurodivergence. It's spectrum. The spectrum. You hear the term spectrum over and over again. And a lot of the things like autism and ADHD, it's a spectrum that you fall on. And so somebody may be high functioning and deal with it a certain way. Someone may be low functioning and not be able to deal with it at all, just depending on the situation. But I'll give you a very specific example. My limits are not as clear to me as it is to other people. Most people will know what their limits are. They know when to stop. It's not black and white for me. I will continue to go until I just can't go anymore. Now, I've gotten better about that. And Henry County Parks and Rec has been really, really good about that. Donna tells me about my schedule. One thing JP told me when I started, he said, I don't care when you work, as long as you get your job done and you get me anything that I need. And I have taken that and ran with it. But the downside of that is when I first started, I worked 26 weekends in a row without taking a weekend off. And Donna told me at the beginning of that summer, I think everything came to a head in September, I believe, into August, 1st of September. And back in May, she told me when I said that, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do these programs over the summer. And we were doing summer camp at the same time. Donna told me, she said, that is not a good idea. You're going to burn out. Of course, I didn't listen. And Donna deals with that quite a bit. Every now and again, she'll have to stop and say it over again and make sure I'm paying attention when she says something. I'm so sorry about that, Donna. But, and sure enough, I didn't listen. I worked and just did not stop. And my wife was the first one that could tell that something was going on. And it was weird how it manifested because I was in the checkout line at a grocery store, and I started to sweat and have trouble breathing as I was checking out, and was getting progressively more irritated. Now, I wound up having CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and we really delved into that. But, I worked in the prison system. Waiting and staying in one spot and being held in one spot is difficult for somebody with ADHD anyway. But when you think about all I went through in the prison, being trapped like that was setting me off. And I didn't have, my brain was already so tired and my body was already so tired from dealing with things. I was not regulating properly. And it got worse and worse. Every time that I would be in a situation where I was stuck in traffic or I was stuck at the checkout line at the grocery store, like I said, I would be drenched in sweat. I would be near panicking. And I thought I was developing diabetes and my sugar was dropping. So I would get like a Dr. Pepper or a candy bar in the checkout line and eat it as soon as I got to my car. And I felt fine. Well, I was no longer in that situation anymore. So that's what it was. And finally, it just came to a head. And we were talking about this earlier. I lost 20 pounds in less than a month because I could not eat. I could not sleep. Work was the only place that I was functioning because work got me out of my thoughts. And that just shows you, thankfully, they created a supportive environment. And I am doing better and more than I have ever done because people in Henry County created a supportive environment. So that's a nice example. In fact, Katrina is probably the reason that I didn't wind up in the hospital with dehydration, because she went and got a smoothie and 2 Smart Waters, or no, not Smart Water, some kind of other drink, and made me drink them. Because I had I lost so much weight so quickly. Everybody knew something was going on. And so that's just one example. But I want to come to Katrina last, and I'll tell you why. So who else?
Thomas, the therapist has not been born yet that will have to deal with me.
Hold on, Brian.
Your time as a special events coordinator.
Brian, hold on. You're breaking up really bad. Okay, try now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We're good.
I said the therapist have to unpack the damage you've done to me as a special events coordinator.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Brian put me in charge of parking when I first started as special event coordinator, and he follows my advice on it ever since then. Apparently I do too much when it comes to parking. I don't know. So, Dr. Zach, let's hear from you. And right now I'm not your supervisor, Zach. I want you to be completely unfiltered with this. It's really important that people see our views on it.
Yes, sir. I'll start back to the very beginning. When I came on as an intern, my first interview with Thomas. I was just getting out of pretty much about to be done with school and everything with my doctorate, and I was just writing my paper. So I was pretty much summed up with everything with all my didactic work and everything. So when I met Thomas, my first reaction was him, abruptly walking into the interview room with a lot of energy. He asked me, I think, 2 questions. What's my name? Or no, it was 1 question. What's my name? And then it was, you're hired. But I could see by his personality and the way he walked in, he was high energy. I didn't mentally diagnose him with ADHD. I mean, when he told me, I was like, but no, just joking. But like,
when you saw my office, that should have been the first indication.
Yeah, that was, yeah. Yes, sir. So for me, whenever I was when I first started on with Thomas, I knew seeing that for this position, for me to be excellent in it, or at least do well enough for the agency, I was going to have to come with high energy for the programs he was going to have me over or have me a part of. So looking at it from a perspective, I knew I'm a pretty chill guy, laid back, a little quiet, but I knew with Thomas, I had to bring out my energy side. I had to be fast paced, fast moving, try to be everywhere at once, extending my arms. And it was a nice challenge, to help me get out of my shell within the agency, get to know more people and get to move around. But it also showed me more about him and his functioning and how he thinks about things, that, hey, we're on the fly, we're doing fast. He may, like yesterday, call me at 4:00, be like, hey, you want to do a podcast tomorrow? So it's like, you have to be very much prepared to work in his environment, which I do love.
Lack of impulse control, just complete lack of it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I had a question for you, Thomas.
Yep. Yes, sir.
So I'm putting myself in your shoes because I often find myself in the mornings, I have this super high indestructible energy that I feel like I can do anything. And that's when I'm making out my to-do list for the day. And I don't have that understanding that I just overloaded myself because I've got this massive influx of energy. Yep. And then towards the end of the day, when that energy starts to wane, I feel defeated that I wasn't able to accomplish everything I lined myself out to do. How do you deal with that sense of, I don't want to say it's not rejection, but that you weren't able to accomplish all the things that you felt so passionate about earlier that day or that week or that month?
Craig, I feel like we share a brain right now.
Yeah.
I feel like we share a brain. So let's clarify. I was not diagnosed with ADHD until, well, I take that back. When I was a kid, ADHD wasn't really a thing. It was mainly ADD. There was some early talks about that when I was a kid. My parents didn't want me to be on medicine, that sort of thing. But I didn't get my official diagnosis until I was an adult when I went through that in September a few years ago that we just talked about. And so I always thought everybody, I just thought I was screwing up because like you said, I would get up with this energy and people will see me in the mornings. I'll come in crazy in the mornings and by the afternoons, I'll just be tired. But I remember early on when I got this position, I would say to Donna that, and Michelle, I would come in their offices and I would just say, I feel like I'm screwing up. I'm just here. And they would surprise me because they would talk about how great of a job I was doing. And I'd be like, what are you talking about? I have all this that I haven't done yet because as the day progresses, suddenly you're faced with this long list of things that you do. And let me show you my alarms on the phone. And you have no idea where to start because that energy is gone. The energy is gone. So you're just lost in a sea of things to start. And you have trouble getting started on it. Now, once I get started, you can't stop me, but it makes you feel like a failure. And I have had to train my brain into realizing that I have worth. And it was really a self-esteem issue that I was feeling I was not as good as everyone else. And that was the reality. I felt like I was not as good as anybody else. Just to function in my daily thing, these are the number of alarms I have, and this is one phone. Both phones are like this. These are the alarms that go off for me every day, and both phones have this many alarms on it, and to remind me to do things throughout the day. And that's one of the ways that I have learned to cope with that is when I set myself these long lists, I set the alarms right away, and so that will help me get it done. But really, a lot of it was my value is not tied to these things that I'm doing. My value is not tied to what I'm not getting done. And so,
yeah, I know for me, it's having these stabilizing forces in my life, which are people like Donna. For you, that's who they are for me. And it's almost like them being in my presence kind of grounds me.
Right,
and then,
exactly.
What they would say is I kind of drag them off a cliff and get them to do things they would have never done on their own. But then
Donna, have you ever said that about me?
Right. But those things would never get accomplished or even thought about had I not just say, no, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to do it. Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. And then they're the ones that end up figuring it out.
Yeah. That has happened many times before, many times before. But I will say we are doing things now that this podcast, Donna, Brian, you have been here the longest as far as being around the staff. Would you have said 5 years ago, 6 years ago that we would be doing this, that we would be traveling across the nation, speaking at conferences, that we would be publishing articles regularly, doing a podcast like this? We're doing things and it was all because we embraced the idea that people think outside the norm. And maybe it's not that we were consciously embracing the idea of let's support the neurodivergent, but instead we embrace the idea that people think out of the norm, they think differently. And that's a whole different thing. So, Craig, I know you usually take a break halfway through the middle, right? Am I right?
Yeah. And we can, I've
So
actually
then
got, go ahead.
Katrina is who I want to go to next. And I've particularly left her to the end, but you may want to do your break before we go into
Yeah.
Katrina.
Okay, so what I'm going to play is a promo that was made for our YPN show, which it is now completely run by interns and our youngest video editor. I put them on a team, and it really is theirs. They made this promo without any of my input, and they're already working on version 2. And I give credit to Thomas for pushing me, seeing what they did with their internship program. It's why I launched mine. And so they even changed, and I'll tell you a mistake I made. I hosted a show for young professionals, specifically college kids that want to do Parks and Rec as a career path. And our show was on Friday. And you really could not have picked a worse day to try to get college kids to show up. So both the interns suggested, can we just move this to later in the day and earlier in the week? So now our YPN show is at 5 p.m. Eastern time on Thursdays. And I'll go ahead and play this, and you'll see the 2 interns in there. They're both in Pennsylvania. And then I'll play our essential services, our facilities maintenance show. Shout out to Brian. And it's all about the people on his side of the equation, people maintaining these facilities. So we'll play these 2, and then we'll come back and pick up where we left off.
On the Daily Parks and Rec Show, we bring you the real stories of tomorrow's professionals, people shaping the future, one idea at a time. Meet the very first DPRS interns to officially host their own segment, Aidan Tierney and Michael Morrow. With curiosity, passion, and a fresh perspective, they're stepping into the spotlight to lead meaningful conversations with today's rising leaders. The Young Professionals Network takes you inside the journeys, challenges, and major wins of young individuals making their mark across industries. From first jobs to bold ventures, every story fuels growth, ambition, and innovation. Each episode brings real conversations, fresh perspectives, and impactful insights created to motivate the next generation of professionals. Whether you're just starting out, exploring new paths, or figuring out your next move, tune in to the Young Professionals Network every Thursday at 5 p.m. only on the Daily Parks and Rec Show. Don't miss it, because your next big idea might be one story away. Behind every thriving park, every safe playground, every event-ready field, there's a team working before sunrise and long after sunset. This is Facility Maintenance, the only show created for and by the unsung heroes of Parks and Recreation. Brought to you by DPRS Media Co., where real work gets real recognition. From restrooms to rec centers, HVAC to turf tech, we go beyond the job site into the heart of operations that keep our communities moving. Our mission? To elevate maintenance teams through stories, solutions, and shared experience. Our vision? A world where every facility crew is seen, valued, and fully supported. Each episode features operators, innovators, and leaders, sharing tools, tech, and tactics that make the impossible look easy. Facility maintenance isn't just a job. It's purpose, it's passion, and now it's a show. Facility Maintenance, where tools meet purpose, where work becomes legacy.
All right, so let's go ahead and pick up where we left off.
Your interns are killing it, man. I am just blown away by Craig LeBlanc and his interns.
Man, I can tell you, they pick up the tech so quick. Their learning curve is like vertical.
Right.
How fast they pick up stuff.
And that is so powerful, because I'm trying to fill as many young people in positions in our department as possible, and encourage young people to get involved in GRPA, NRPA, the professional associations, and not even just that, but just involved in developing themselves, because they're our leaders. You know, they're going to be the people in the future when we're all retired, and hopefully I'll be on a boat in an ocean somewhere, but you know, I'm still going to need people that can forward me all my stuff. So
yep.
Really, no. They're the future of our department, and eventually we're all going to leave, and Zach's going to have to take over this, Zach. So All right, so I left it to the end, and the reason that I left this to the end, first, let me ask this, Katrina, your thoughts on working with me as someone that is neurodivergent, and don't go into your story yet. Just stick with your thoughts. Someone that's neurodivergent, your experience working with me, what's it been like?
So when I was listening to everybody talk about working with you, there was one thing that always comes to mind. If you are working with somebody that is typical neurodivergent, does everything normal, they say, I can never get them to stop. I can never get them to listen. So I have found that working with you it's almost like I have a little basket. I just collect all of the things that don't get to you in your whirlwind. And when you're in a calm moment, I go, oh, by the way, Thomas, this was in the basket. By the way, Thomas, this was in the basket.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure my entire staff has learned to do that. In fact, the number one complaint, I don't get many complaints, but the number one that I get is that I just need to stop and listen. And Donna has told me this a million times. I used to be real bad. I've improved some about being on my phone when somebody were talking, and that's because I could listen to them and do what I was doing on my phone. It wasn't a problem for me to do that, but they didn't perceive it that way. And I will never forget, we had a facility coordinator that isn't with us anymore. He was planning an event, and he wanted to have a meeting with me when I was still special event coordinator to set up this event. And he came into my office and he sat down and we talked. And then 2 minutes later, we'd covered everything that he needed to cover. Now, he expected an hour meeting. I did it in 2 minutes. And he was so flustered and didn't know what to do that he went to somebody else's office to talk about it but we had covered everything, and it's just the difference in how our brains worked. So the reason that, I'm sorry, let me pause if anybody else wants to say anything, because I've kind of dominated this. Before we get into Katrina, does anybody else have any thoughts? All right, so the reason that I asked Katrina to wait until the end, and it is, yes, because she wrote this article. And Katrina, I am under specific instructions not to give away too much about the article and what you wrote in it, and because we signed a release, so keep that in mind. But we do have permission to talk about it, however. And so the reason that I've waited with Katrina is because Katrina's brain works similar to mine. She has dealt with some of the same issues that I have, but I'll let her expand on her story.
Hey, so yes, I grew up during a period of time that a lot of the titles that neurodivergents get nowadays, that just wasn't a case scenario for us. You were told to sit down, concentrate, be still, behave, knuckle down. So it wasn't until I was an adult that I was diagnosed with dyslexia. So growing up, I was always told I needed to be a straight A student, and that if you weren't straight A, you weren't trying hard enough, without anybody actually divulging in and trying to find out why I wasn't a straight A student. I was always, right below it. I was C, B student. So there was always, like Thomas was saying, a stigmatization that stayed over the top of me, that I just wasn't never good enough. So as I became an adult and I had my children, I didn't want my kids to follow through with the same learning disabilities, and nobody ever recognized it. So my daughter does have dyslexia as well. And I became very adamant to advocate for her that she had the tools and learn the tools that I was never given to be able to be successful with it. And through that is how I learned the coping skills that I learned, and realized that it's not a disability. It's actually our superpowers. It's just a difference in the way that we process the information. But I think that that's actually what makes any of us that think a little differently have that out of the box perspective, that different way of looking at it. Where everybody else may be looking at it from up above, we're going to look at it from the sides and underneath before we look at it from above, kind of thing.
Donna, Brian, have y'all seen a shift in your career on Parks and Rec and how people view that, view people that think differently? And Donna, you're in a unique place about that because you worked with Special Olympics so long. So try to, don't talk about the Special Olympics just yet. We are talking about it next month, by the way, Craig. We're going to have our Special Olympics team on here. Think about just the office itself and the Parks and Rec field outside of TR. How have they seen, as far as professionals, how it's shifted?
I think that people are more educated now. I think as far as supervisors, that people think and receive things differently, or at least they try to. Sometimes implementing that as you can see that sometimes we struggle with that. Like it's my way or the highway sometimes, and not everybody gets that. They need more opportunities. They need it spoken to them rather than read something. Just little different things. Some people can work in a chaotic environment. Some people cannot. And it's just recognizing, their strengths and weaknesses as far as their personalities. But I have seen some supervisors get, real aggravated. And, then we'll tell them later on in a private setting, hey, did you see that this person might struggle with this this particular thing, and they just need more time to wrap their heads around it, and maybe you need to describe what you need differently and to try to reach that person. So and then when they start to embrace that, they try to embrace it for other people as well. So I have seen people kind of turn around how they deal with people, and that was good to see.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I like how you really pointed out that the conscious effort is the thing. They made a conscious effort to try to present things to people in a different way. And I know that's not always going to be the case. And people listening, I'm not trying to say that's always going to be the case for you, because there are going to be situations in which you just cannot stop and do things. You have to break it down. Like, you have to break it down for everybody and then move on. You can't necessarily break it down. But the more that you are able to do that, the more that you are to make your office more inclusive like that, the more things you're going to discover about people and what they can do. And Brian had his thumbs up. Were you thumbing up, or did you have something to say? Sorry.
No, I think I wanted to touch base on what Donna said. I think people are a lot more educated today, which allows people to practice a little more patience and a little more grace.
Yeah. And I had something to add to that as well. By the way, if anybody has not read the book, The Untethered Soul, I told you about it, Thomas. I bought you a copy, so I just need to get your address. I want to send you one. And I was reading it this morning, and it said that life is change, and people look at change in two different categories. Change either can be a stressor, and it can create fear of being put in an uncomfortable situation that they're not familiar with. But I think neurodivergent people see change as opportunity for growth, and a lot of times that growth is terrifying to those that are scared of the change. And I think neurodivergent people oftentimes are change agents, and that change is kind of terrifying for all the people around them. But for them, they're like, but this is a great opportunity for us to grow and think of all that will become. And they're like, oh my gosh, how are we going to make this happen? We don't have the resources, we don't have the manpower. And so it's same change, but viewed from two different lenses. I'm curious what your thoughts were on that, Thomas.
It's actually great. So I came in my interview, I asked, and Donna was in my interview, I said, and I was being hired for special events. And I asked, well, what about programs? Can I start programs? And JP said, well, we always like people to give us ideas, and we're really open to sharing. And then when I started, it was like a month and a half later, I had created a chess program. And I was told that the chess program had been, by the last person that had done it, they're no longer with us, but the last person that had done it, that the chess program wouldn't work because we had tried it and it just did not work. Well, okay, thank you for telling me that it didn't work. Now let me figure out a way that it will work. And we had no money for it. And I said, I know I want to do this, so let me think of how I'm going to do it. Virtual, chess.com. We're going to do chess tournaments via chess.com. It doesn't cost anybody anything. It cost me $3 for a premium membership, so I can set up and run the tournaments that way. So we started it that way. Then GRPA had the new program grant. I'm like, wow, that'll pay for the chessboards. So we wrote it for that. And it's like, you've got all these ideas, and we get stuck in a rut where we say we don't have the resources to do it. We don't have the resources to do it. But it's because we train our brains to think a certain way. We have neural pathways in our brain that we follow over and over again because those are the neural pathways that have been created. Well, a neurodivergent person is going to have different neural pathways. Now, the whole thing about cognitive behavioral therapy is training that neurodivergent person to create the neural pathways that they don't have. Well, those extra neural pathways, those other neural pathways that they have, allow them to look at things in a different way. And I think one of the things that we have transitioned from is that we've really learned to take in those different ideas, really bring in those different things. And that's what's elevated our department. For example, Kimberly, our admin assistant, came up with a watering can. That's how it all started. Now, me and Brian got in there and it wound up being something completely different than what we had started, but it started there. And instead of just shutting down the idea, we built off of it and we continued. Did I answer your question just then? I got lost my train of thought halfway through. The
No.
ADHD.
Yeah. That was good. I like how it's good to highlight both frameworks. That you've got people that see change as a growth opportunity, and you see other people that see changes as, well, here's all the problems that's going to bring into our life.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, you just made me think. I'm sorry, impulse control. You just made me think. I went back to you were talking about the sudden burst of energy. Now, I told everybody that I submitted us 11 or 13 conference proposals for NRPA to speak this time. Of course, we won't be chosen for all of them, but what I didn't tell everybody is that I had a burst of energy later, and we wound up actually submitting 31 conference proposals to speak. So surprise, everybody, burst of energy moment. And we're going to figure out how it works. Just like Craig said, we're going to figure out how to make it happen. So don't be scared. Don't be scared. Speaking of that, we get scared. We get scared when we're doing things that are different. And things that are different terrify me, especially when I was put in situations that I was not used to, that I was not comfortable with. Being one-on-one with individuals is extremely hard for me. I can do groups all day long. You can be my best friend, but one-on-one for me is difficult, and I have to force myself to do it because I'm not inclined to do it. And I think a lot of it has to do with silence. I abhor silence. And that, again, is just my brain running and everything like that. So one-on-one is very difficult for me. So when I had to meet with a staff member one-on-one, I really struggled into forcing myself to do that. And
I can vouch for that. I can vouch for that with Thomas, because Thomas will drive across town to come visit me and will stay for 15 seconds. That's it. Like, I thought he'd come to really sit down, talk to me, and it's 15 seconds and he's gone.
We said everything we needed to say in that 15 seconds.
I understand you. I speak Thomas. Like, I get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's very true.
Yeah. So, Katrina, can you tell us a little bit about your article?
Well, it is about the different skills that I had to, I had some challenges this past year with some other employees that was underneath me that had some neurodivergence that they were dealing with as well. And it was very hair pulling at times. So these were the different things that we found that worked and didn't work, is what the article's about.
And the article really looks into, she named the article, I Just Don't Get Her, is the title of the article. And actually, Kara was the person who came up with the article, but she got promoted. You've met Kara before. Kara has been promoted and has moved to fire rescue away from Parks and Recreation. She was one of our first interns, and she was supposed to write the article. When Kara left, she couldn't write the article anymore. So Katrina decided to write the article. And ironically, Katrina had said the words, I just don't get her, talking about Kara. So that was the ironic part. But not only that, Katrina also covers how she'll say the words about herself. Like we talk about how our brains work and things like that. But I think one of the most frustrating things is we pause and we say, why am I thinking this way? Like, why am I doing this? Why am I like this? And it's so hard on the self-conscious, the self-esteem when you do that. You really you defeat yourself. We are our own worst enemies. Really take a new tone with that. Is there any what's the science there? Doctor, that was your cue when I said science. Just
So it had messed up for me a little bit, Thomas. You said the science.
Yeah, so we're really hard on ourselves because we think about we get frustrated with ourselves, and Katrina covers that in our article. We get frustrated with ourselves and think, why are we like this? Because the rest of the world's not. Why are we like this? And that is a cycle. We continue to bring ourselves down the more we think negative about ourselves.
Yeah, it's kind of just like it could be a couple of things. It could be within our own head, within our own executing, functioning for our own self, but also like Katrina and like you were saying too, Thomas, like how we're brought up and how we're, the way we learn and from our parents or whoever was our guardians teaching us. Like for me, I kind of like how you were talking earlier. Some days, like whenever like my dad used to coach me or like stuff like that, if I messed up or feel like I wasn't doing enough, I was like, do I need to ask, am I doing good, Thomas? Or is there something else I need to change or things of that? And it might have been the simplest day or like, what could you have messed up for you to think that way or things of that nature? And it's just almost how you think and you function as in, I need to do more, I have to be more, or just like, you tell me all the time, like, hey, Zach, if you don't take time off, you're going to burn out. But for me, my mind's thought, like, if I take time off, that leaves, room for a mess up, then I might lose my position or something like that. But even though that might not be the case at all, it's just the way, like, we think already in our minds, the way we programmed ourselves.
Oh, I think you muted. There you go.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I muted myself and couldn't unmute myself. I apologize. So basically, this whole episode comes down to one thing. The entire world, the entire professional world, not just us, we are on the precipice of a huge change. Gen Z is entering the workforce. And it's not so much that, well, there could be an argument made as far as training our brains, and that's why neurodivergence is more prevalent in Gen Z, but a lot of it is because we have the tools in place in the school systems and the knowledge to diagnose earlier and really recognize those problems. Well, the school systems and early on people have adapted to that and figured out ways to create an environment that supports students like that. Well, now we have the workforce. Are we going to create a workforce, a work environment in which it supports those individuals that have that neurodivergence and reap the benefits of it? Or are we going to lock ourselves out of that by forcing people to fit the norms? Craig, you're probably more familiar with the workforce and developing the workforce than anybody else here. So,
yeah, well, one thing I was going to say in light of everything y'all said so far is that I guess if you want to understand the neurodivergent crowd, which I think will operate more in the modern day constant change environment that we're in, I think because of technology and AI, it's just it's perpetual change. It's almost like you never get a break before some software has made us more efficient. So now you have to operate much differently. But something I learned from Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, was that he said the framework you should operate in as an entrepreneur is how can I, not I can't. And a lot of the people that are not neurodivergent, their default setting is I can't do that. And the entrepreneurs operate from a perpetual state of how can I. And so when you've got a group of people that are trying to protect their schedule and their time and their presence by saying, I can't do this, this is what I'm working on, and I need to stay focused on this. And then you've got a leader that's in a perpetual, how can we? And their brain, the creative brain, is just exploding with all the ways that we can make this happen. It creates a disconnect between
oftentimes your visionaries and your leaders or your change agents and the people that are helping them to do that change is they're looking for ways why they can't. They'll give you 1,000 reasons why it can't be done. And then you've got this other person that's trying to unearth all the ways that it can be done. And so one trick, I guess you could, to kind of understand this framework where people are coming from is always keep that question in your mind, how can I? And it gives your brain permission to seek solutions versus seek ways that it can't work. And that's something that's helped me, I guess, throughout my entire career, but also people around me.
Well, I will say that our department has 100% adapted that idea and adopted that idea about how can I and not I can't. It's rare that Donna will actually, when I come to her an idea, it's very rare that she'll tell anyone no. She just wants us to figure out, okay, how are we going to do it? Now, there are certain times that the budget just will not allow, or there may be a political reason why we can't do something, or issues like that that are out of our control. But the trick is, and we did a thing about this called insane programming. It's one of the sessions that we do, in which we talk about you get no as the answer, figure out how to do it anyway. So they're saying no to a certain thing, figure out how to do it anyway. And one way that I try to connect with my staff, because I know I think differently, I know I work differently, I know it's frustrating for my staff at times when I'm like this and coming up with a million ideas and saying, we're going to change this. I know it's frustrating with them. I try to make sure they understand the why of why we're doing it. We always talk about the why in Parks and Rec, and we talk about our why and why we're in Parks and Rec, but also the why I come up with this idea. Why is it important to do this? We make this change. Why is it important that we do this? And when they start thinking that way, then suddenly they have ideas too.
Yep.
And it's all about changing our thinking. And I think that is changing our thinking. I think, wow. Okay. All right. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
In our field, we have the opportunity to do so much for the people that we serve. If we just stop thinking that we can't do it, if we just stop thinking that we can't do it. And that has been the mentality that has held agencies back for decades, because they think that they can't do it, or they think that they're doing enough. The reality is that we have people that we're not serving right now. We have people that are not included in our programs. And so the simplest why is, what can you do to reach those people, because those people deserve to be reached? And it's the same in the workforce. What are you doing for your staff members? How are you reaching your staff members? How are you being inclusive with your staff members? Because they deserve the chance to be heard, and they have great ideas. And if you're not listening to those ideas, if you're not working with your staff, you may miss out on the thing that changes your entire department. I mean, look at where we are now. We've changed our department, and it's because everybody, and I'm not saying I'm the one that changed our department. I'm not. I assisted in doing that, but we all had ideas, and we ran with these ideas because we adopted the mentality that everybody has something to contribute. Everybody thinks differently. So let's bring everybody to the table and see what they have to say.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll add to that a little bit, Thomas, is I love how you say, why are we doing this? And Simon Sinek's famous speech about, always starting with why. I mean, a great example is you don't see moms just lifting cars to get stronger and work out. But if their own child is stuck under the car, watch that mom go. But she understands the importance of her why is almost unstoppable. And I think when we're just solving problems for the sake of solving problems, the why is not strong. But like you said, if you dig deep into why we're launching these programs, the kids that are left out, that maybe single moms that really depend on the Parks and Rec system. And that's the reason why we're dealing with this change, trying to create ways to make our programs happen. Then all of a sudden, people that were on one side of the equation that it can't be done are like, no, we're going to figure this out because we understand the why behind it.
And I think that is a great motivating factor for neurodivergent or non-neurodivergent people, as when you have a strong why, you figure out a way to get it done.
Yep. 100%. 100%. No doubt. No doubt. You figure out how to get it done. And so as we conclude, because we're getting to the end, as we conclude, final thoughts from everybody. You've heard my thoughts, so let's hear final thoughts from everybody. Katrina, why don't you end us since you wrote the article? Brian? Is Brian still with us, or did he freeze? I think Brian may be frozen on the
frozen in time.
Brian's working on his phone. Okay, there we go. I hear you now. Go ahead, Brian.
Try to be the reason someone smiles. Try to be the reason somebody smiles today.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Zach, what you got?
For me, because for me, Craig, I work with a lot of Gen Z, and I get to see a lot of just diversity with neurodiversity. And it's just like what Brian said when he was speaking at conference. You just have to find your people's niche, find what they like. And one thing I love about our agency, we allow our Gen Z staff, they have different events or different areas they can work and express their creativity or express, what they have within themselves, or just, areas where it might seem different or not your typical. They can be their non-typical in these other events or these areas, which creates a better morale. It increases our talent retention, and it just overall boosts our agency. So, sorry.
I agree. And our leader, deputy director, and my only hope for promotion, Donna Holder.
I just think that you need to try to find everybody's hidden talents and everybody's gift. I think most people have a gift, and it's up to you to help find that gift sometimes in people. So don't forget that. And then I've been told no many times over the years, but that's not what I hear, and that's not how I operate. I just hear next opportunity, and sometimes that means the next person behind you will get this idea and we'll move forward, and that's how we're going to work this. So next, no just means next opportunity.
Yeah. Just for the record, Donna's not the typical person either. Even if she won't say it, she's not the typical person either. Katrina?
What I would have to say is, when you find somebody that's a little quirky or you don't know what to do with them, is when you take the 5 minutes to dive in and see exactly where their skills are and how you can take that and nurture it into becoming a superpower.
So, Craig, I just want to say one last thing. You have a decision to make in your departments and your agencies, people that are listening. You have a decision to make, whether you're a leader or not. Are you going to create that inclusive environment, or are you going to give up on it?
Yep.
That's
Great
the decision.
message.
Are you going to elevate or not?
Yep. Love it.
All right.
Well, look, Thomas, if you don't mind hanging on a little bit, I'd love to kind of chat live about the show idea that you gave us, and maybe we can call out a few people that I know are regular listeners that might be great contributors to that show.
Sure, 100%, 100%.
But everybody else, thank y'all so much for coming on again and sharing all the wisdom that y'all have, and really just keeping it real, because oftentimes we're all facing the exact same problem times 12,000 cities and counties across America, but no one's coming up forward and saying, yeah, we face the same problem too. Here's a shoulder to cry on. Here's how we cry about it, but then here's how we fix it, and here's how we've made progress in all of these. And Henry County, Georgia's doing a great job of leading by example. So really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Craig.
Thank you for having us, Craig.
Yeah, great seeing y'all. Thomas, you can hang on a minute.
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you, guys. Let's see. All right. So what was your show idea, Thomas?
So really, really quickly, and I'll bring up the LinkedIn, the message that I sent on LinkedIn. We don't talk enough in the Parks and Rec field, and we're getting better about it. Almost every conference, you'll hear something dealing with mental health. But that stigma in society has started to crumble. It's still there some, but the stigma is crumbling. But in Parks and Rec, we don't talk enough about mental health in the workplace. I'm so sorry.
you see that on the bottom of that screen?
Okay, gotcha. I'll fix it. Sorry, we had they just pointed out an issue to us. But Georgia is spelled wrong on the running bar, or practices something is spelled wrong on the runner. But anyway, I don't know what they were talking about. They said something was spelled wrong, but I don't see anything.
Hold on, we'll fix it.
Oh, it's Georgia. Georgia is spelled wrong.
Oh, I see.
That's what the text was. Sorry. But we don't talk enough about mental health in the workplace, and especially in Parks and Rec, and how it impacts our Parks and Rec, because all of us in our field, we face burnout. It's a huge problem with Parks and Rec, because we're constantly going, we're constantly trying to push ourselves and reach that next thing, reach that next level, but we can't. We burn ourselves out, and we don't talk about it enough. We don't talk about how we should address that. And
Yeah, and I think a close friend of mine now, Justin Cutler, over in he runs the Atlanta Parks and Rec department, and he speaks on this topic so eloquently. And then also Sevi Ghosh out in San Francisco, I think would be great contributors to. And even if we do like a 4-part series, doesn't have to be like a monthly show, but I think it's a topic that we kind of need to give some airtime and talk about how that's solved.
I agree. I was at a conference, in the one in Georgia at Jekyll Island, and I said I always challenge my staff to go and put themselves in a situation that's make them uncomfortable. And I had never talked about my mental health journey, again, because of the stigma behind it. And you heard a little bit about it now. And I said, you know what, I'm going to do a session on it, about my journey and what we can do in our departments to help people that are in those dark situations. And so I told my story, and it was easily the most impactful conference session that I have ever done. And it made me realize people want to hear this. They want to hear more, because it gives them the courage to face their own issues, to seek help when they need it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the big things. People will not seek help when they need it.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to mental health, one of the issues is we see ourselves performing when we have high energy, strong mental health, great support, and then we contrast that with the opposite, when we're really struggling with mental health, when we're overwhelmed, when we have these differences on our team, and the difference is so stark. You'll see one guy that's just a superstar, and then you see him again later in the week, and he's just getting crushed.
It is, yeah, it is, and oftentimes it's themselves crushing. It's crushing ourselves, and that's exactly what I went through back a couple of years ago. And it was just a crushing depression that came over me. And it was all because of how I tied my value to myself and the different mental health issues that I was doing. And so I will say this as we talk about this show, and you mentioned his name already, I am going to call out my fellow Georgia Parks and Rec professional, Justin Cutler, and challenge you to come on and do this with us, Justin.
Yeah.
The challenge, the gauntlet has been thrown down. Let's do this. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, he has a wealth of knowledge. Me and him have shared a lot of books and podcasts and YouTube videos constantly. We're always sending each other stuff. And it really is a great topic that's very necessary, I think, in a world that's constantly demanding more and more in an ever-changing environment, to have strong mental health.
Well, you and I have a connection there to a degree. Wayne Dyer, you hear me talk about Wayne Dyer all the time. Wayne Dyer, even though he passed away in 2016, is what got me out of that.
Yeah.
Like therapy, yes, but Wayne Dyer's lectures is what got me, because it helped me reframe everything.
Well, while I got you, text me your mailing address.
I just sent it to you.
Okay, fantastic. You're going to love this book. If you love Dr. Wayne Dyer, you're going to love
I can't wait.
Michael Singer.
I
I'm
cannot wait.
my 4th time reading this book. I read it every day, and it helps me with pretty much everything we've talked about. So
awesome. I cannot wait. I absolutely cannot wait.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show today. Thank y'all so much for
Thank
helping
you.
us with these.
Have a good one.
Yep. Take care. All right. So, man, that was a great show. I love creating content with Henry County, Georgia. They really are quite a great example across America about Parks and Rec departments, and I love how vulnerable they're able to be with themselves and not pretend like everything's perfect. And and this is one of the most highly functioning Parks and Rec departments I've ever had the benefit of working with. So thank y'all so much. Shout out to everybody that works over there at Henry County, Georgia, for helping us to create more great content for the Parks and Rec community. Okay, so we got a lot of great stuff coming on for the new year. We're actually making a little end of year celebration. Thank you to everyone that got us through year one as we launch into 2026. And so be looking for that. And that's all I have for today. I'm actually going to try to immediately after this finish our morning show with Patrick out in California. Because we had a little technology crash, but I think we got all things figured out. But thank y'all so much for attending today. We will see y'all here in a minute. And then tomorrow we have the Youth Sports Mastery show, followed by at 5 p.m., followed by the Young Professionals Network show that's now run by our interns, Michael Moreau and Aiden Tierney. So look forward to that. But I'll see y'all here in a second. Y'all have a great day. Love you guys. Thanks. Bye.
Welcome to DPRS Media Co., the first media company built for the people behind the Parks and Rec community. We don't just cover on Parks and Rec, we elevate it, we amplify it, we honor it. At the heart of everything we do is one mission: to serve the public servants, the professionals who design, maintain, and lead the parks that shape our communities. Under the Daily Parks and Rec Show, we produce 6 powerful platforms. Leadership in Parks and Rec, a spotlight on directors, superintendents, and visionaries shaping the future of public spaces. Facility maintenance, where the boots hit the ground, a deep dive into the systems, crews, and craftsmanship that keep our parks clean, safe, and beautiful. Young Professionals Network, shining a light on the next generation of Parks and Rec. Students, interns, and mentors sharing how we build a legacy together. Youth Sports Mastery, sponsored by National Academy of Athletics. This series is for coaches, parents, and rec leaders working to make youth sports fun, fair, and meaningful again. The Rec Room, hosted by the passionate leaders of Henry County Parks and Rec. This show brings frontline energy and real-life stories from the field. And the weekly Parks and Rec Post, our official newsletter delivering stories, insights, and community wins every week. We are DPRS Media Co., LLC, a media company with a mission to uplift the professionals who serve every community, every park, every day.
At DPRS Media Co., we don't just create content, we elevate community through storytelling. Now, we're proud to introduce the newest addition to the family. Welcome to Youth Sports Mastery, the podcast where champions are shaped, not just on the field, but in life. Hosted by National Academy of Athletics founder Aaron Locks. Youth Sports Mastery dives deep into how youth sports can empower kids, strengthen communities, and build leaders. From coaching culture to recreation strategy, and from player development to parent impact, every episode brings game-ready insight from the people making it happen. Youth Sports Mastery goes live every Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Only on the Daily Parks and Rec Show, sponsored by National Academy of Athletics. And powered by DPRS Media Co. This is where purpose meets play.